Several published reports have the AEW-Warner Bros. Discovery deal that's been talked about for months, if not the last couple of years, on the verge of being announced, whether it's the next few days, next week or two. And the deal is worth, or going to be worth, reportedly in the $170 million range, and it will go 3 or 4 years. So that would be a little lower than Tony Khan had been speculating about publicly, or at least been speculated to be speculated about publicly, both in terms of the amount of money and also the length of the deal. It'd be less too than what WWE is getting for its flagship shows, but it would be more than double what AEW is currently getting from WBD on its deal that was signed back in 2019. So that 2019 deal originally was for 45 million a year. It was just basically get in the door kind of deal. And then it expanded to 70 million a year when AEW and WBD gave basically more TV time. At first, it was Dynamite on Wednesday nights. Then there was the debut of Rampage in 2021 and the later edition of Collision in 2023. Um, Now, I wrote a piece on these numbers back in July. I was at that time commenting on the word I got out there, an estimate from a gentleman named Austin Karp, who writes for Sports Business Journal, who was talking on Busted Open Radio at that time. He expected that AEW would get between 110 million and 115 million a year with a new TV deal. And when I started doing the math, I came up with a much bigger figure. And I wanted to explain the details of the math I did. Um, it started with Netflix agreeing to a 10-year, $5 billion deal to acquire the rights to Raw. That's 500 million a year. NBC Universal then got the right to SmackDown away from Fox, $1.4 billion deal over 5 years, $280 million a year. And then a throw in WWE is moving NXT to the CW network for 25 million a year. So using the viewer numbers for each of those shows, I try to come up with a somewhat educated guess on what AEW could expect. What I came up with is this, and this is all spelled out on a story on the website for those watching on YouTube. There's a link in the description that you can go to, and you can see these numbers. But I'll go over them here. Based on what Netflix has agreed to pay for, and assuming that Netflix is going to keep Raw at 3 hours, what they're going to pay for Raw, it comes to $3.2 million per hour of content. Um, and that's based on what USA Network's currently getting for Raw, which is 1.7 million viewers. Um, it'll be interesting to see how many people go to Netflix and watch it both live and then I guess throughout the week because Netflix, I mean, you can watch Netflix live, you can watch anything at this day and age with on demand and that kind of thing. But the 1.7 million viewers is based on live viewers. And so, okay, so 3.2 million per hour for Raw. NBC Universal is going to be paying 2.7 million per hour for an hour of SmackDown. Right now, that audience is at about 2.4 million on Fox, but that's on broadcast TV. I'm basing my 2.7 million per hour on the numbers for Raw because SmackDown and actually it could even be lower. The viewer numbers for SmackDown could and probably will be lower than even Raw because SmackDown will be on Friday nights. Friday nights not a big TV night. Uh, but that's just the estimate, 2.7 million per hour. The CW is getting a deal. The WWE just gave CW a deal, 240,000 an hour to reach its 650,000 or so viewers per week. So AEW is currently getting around 700,000 for Dynamite, 400,000 on average for Collision, and around 300,000 for its Rampage show, which is in a horrible time slot, Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern. Those viewer numbers are closer to where NXT is. But my basic math here is that if if WWE was smart, they would have held out a little bit more and gotten closer to $100 million a year, up to about $110 million a year for NXT, if they weren't just trying to give that away, which is apparently what they were doing. Uh, so using all those numbers, AEW currently provides WBD a total of 5 hours of TV per week. Um, if put the number of what the average hour of AEW programming is based on their number of viewers, I put it at about $825,000 per hour, which works out to $4.1 million a week or $215 million for the year. So I wrote this story and I'm re-examining it now because someone who's pretty smart estimated that AEW would probably get in the range of 110 to 115 million per year. I suggested it was more like 215 million. That final number, if the number being reported and floated out there is true, 170 million is closer to where I was, certainly in the direction of where I was. Um, and I will hedge here only in to say uh, there is still talk, speculation, etc., that AEW will not be done with an announcement involving WBD. The Tony Khan apparently is floating out another potential show. He's registered the name Shockwave and done some basic marketing to that name just to say we're going to shock the world kind of thing. There is the talk is that AEW is in conversations with Fox, Fox Sports 1 perhaps, Fox Sports 2 to have another weekly show there that could bring in some more money. So they could still get another 40 or 50 million dollars and maybe who knows, maybe more than that out of that. And the pay-per-view money also is still not, we don't know what's going to happen there. We don't know if AEW is going to bring that in-house, if a deal with WBD would put the pay-per-views on Max, which would would that be included in the 170 million? Probably not. How much more money would AEW get for that part of the deal? There's still some money floating out there, I guess, is what we're saying, and it'll be something we're keeping an eye on as we continue to monitor the news of AEW. And the bottom line on this, AEW, if they're not going to be profitable based on what would be a massive infusion of cash, they're going to be a lot closer to it. And this is good news for wrestling fans. Even if you're not an AEW fan, if you're just a WWE fan, I say just, if you just like one company, I'm a one company guy. I don't watch WWE. Uh, but if you're a one company person and AEW is not your company, that's still, it makes the business better when there's more competition out there. And this would be the biggest deal for a non-WWE slash WWF company in TV history. So, and it just means more, more chances for wrestlers to get work, managers to get work, production people to get work. I like people who should be getting paid and paid well to be professionals at this to have a chance to do their thing. It's a good thing for everybody. Good thing for the fans as well.